The request came quietly, too quietly. A middle-aged woman arrived at our temporary lodging just after dusk, her steps hesitant, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. She did not cry, she did not beg. Those who came without desperation were often the most dangerous. "My son hasn't been the same since the funeral," she said. "He talks to someone who isn't there. He refuses to sleep in his room." I felt Hu Xiaoba's presence stiffen. My sister, however, leaned forward, listening intently. The Huang immortal stirred faintly around her, like a shadow stretching its limbs. "Who died?" my sister asked. The woman swallowed. "My husband, sudden illness, he passed at home." That was the first warning. Deaths without closure often left echoes, and echoes, when ignored, became doors. I should have refused. I felt the imbalance immediately. Resentment mixed with longing, not strong enough to manifest fully, yet persistent enough to cling. A classic gray case, not my specialty, not hers either, but my sister spoke before I could stop her. "We'll come tonight," she said calmly. No need to prepare offerings. The Huang immortal approved. Hu Xiaoba did not. The house was old, its walls thick with years of suppressed emotion. The moment we stepped inside, my heavenly eye throbbed painfully. The air was stale, heavy with unspoken words. The son sat in the corner, staring at the empty space beside him. "He stands there," the boy whispered. "He says he hasn't finished talking to Mom." I raised my hand, signaling silence. The spirit emerged slowly, not violent, not twisted, just incomplete. He did not want revenge, he wanted to stay. That was the worst kind. I began the ritual to guide him away, invoking Hu San Taiye's authority, drawing talismans meant to loosen attachment. The room darkened, candles flickering violently. That was when my sister intervened. "Wait," she said softly, "to the spirit, not to me." "What do you want to say?" The Huang immortal leaned closer, unseen but present. The spirit turned toward her and spoke. Words meant only for the living, confessions, regrets, apologies delayed too long. The woman collapsed in tears, sobbing as if something lodged in her chest had finally cracked open. I felt the balance tilt. This was not resolution. This was indulgence. "Enough," I snapped, pushing forward to complete the sending ritual. But the bond had already formed. The spirit clung to her voice, her attention, the warmth of being heard. In that instant, the Huang immortal made his move. Not violently, strategically. He anchored the spirit, not to the house, but to my sister. The backlash was immediate. The candles extinguished simultaneously. The air rushed inward, like a held breath finally released. And something old, something far darker than the incomplete spirit, stirred beneath the floorboards. We had opened the wrong door. What emerged was not the dead husband. It was the thing, feeding on his hesitation. A shadow mass, bloated and silent, formed from years of suppressed grief, resentment, and unspoken blame. It had no face, no voice, only hunger. The woman screamed. The boy collapsed. I acted without thinking. Calling upon Hu San Taiye's name, I forced my will outward, slashing through the darkness with ritual commands meant for far lesser entities. The willow spirit darted frantically, warning me, too late. The entity struck back, not at me, at my sister. She gasped, doubling over as if punched from within. Her eyes snapped open, golden, sharp, unfamiliar. The Huang immortal surged forward to protect his investment, wrapping her soul tightly in his presence. That protection came at a cost. The entity was repelled, but not destroyed. It fled, tearing free part of my sister's vitality as it escaped. The ritual collapsed, silence returned, but the damage was done. We left before dawn. No payment was accepted. The woman knelt, thanking us through tears, unaware that her relief had been purchased with someone else's loss. My sister did not speak the entire journey back. That night, Hu Xiaoba finally lost her composure. "You crossed lines you do not yet understand," she said sharply. "Guiding spirits is not therapy. Compassion without authority is invitation." I demanded to know what had been taken. Hu Xiaoba looked at my sister, then away. 10 years, she said quietly. 10 years of smooth fate. The Huang clan will compensate, but with interest. The Huang immortal laughed softly, unbothered. "She learned," he said, "and learning is never free." From that day on, my sister changed. She grew colder, more distant. Her intuition sharpened, but warmth faded from her eyes. She slept without dreams, laughed less. When she smiled, it felt practiced. And me? I learned the hardest truth of all. That power does not punish recklessness immediately. It waits, and when payment is due, it never accepts installments. Our first case ended in failure. Our second would decide whether we were practitioners or merely tools sharpening themselves for forces that did not care if we survived. The backlash did not arrive immediately. That was how I knew it would be severe. For 3 days after the failed case, my sister functioned normally, too normally. She ate on time. She answered questions politely. She even smiled when spoken to. Yet something vital had been quietly removed, like a pillar pulled from a house that still stood, unaware it had already begun to collapse. On the 4th night, the symptoms began. She woke screaming, clutching her chest, gasping as though something were tightening around her ribs from the inside. Her skin grew cold, her pulse irregular. When I touched her wrist, I felt it, an absence where warmth should have been. The Huang immortal finally spoke. "Do not panic," he said calmly. "The payment cycle has begun." I demanded to know what he meant. He did not answer directly. Instead, he explained the rules. The Huang clan did not take fate all at once. They collected gradually, ensuring the host remained functional long enough to become dependent. Emotional dulling, fatigue, gradual detachment from human bonds. These were not punishments, but adjustments. "She interfered with death," he said, "and she did so without authority. I shielded her. Now the debt transfers." "To whom?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "To me," he replied smoothly, "and I will be reimbursed through her." That night, my sister lost her first memory. She could not recall our childhood home. The Hu clan intervened at dawn. I did not summon them. They came because the balance had shifted too far. The air thickened with pressure, the kind that made breathing feel ceremonial. Incense burned without flame. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. Then Hu Xiaoba appeared, no longer gentle, no longer playful. She knelt. Behind her stood figures I could not fully perceive, presences layered atop presences, ancient and vast. Hu Santaye did not descend this time. He spoke through silence. "This debt exceeds permissible bounds." The Huang immortal responded without fear. She consented. "Consent obtained under ignorance is invalid," Hu Santaye replied, "especially when blood ties are involved." The tension was suffocating. Fox and Weasel clans had cooperated before. They had also destroyed one another over lesser disputes. This was not a personal quarrel. It was a jurisdictional conflict. Hu Xiaoba turned to me. You must choose your position. I did not hesitate. She is my sister, I said, and she was never meant to carry this alone. The Huang immortal smiled thinly. A predictable answer, then understand the cost of interference. He revealed the final clause. If the Hu clan reclaimed the debt, it would not vanish. It would transfer to me, not immediately, but permanently. The room fell, silent. Hu Xiaoba looked stricken. You are not yet stable enough to bear dual karmic load. Hu San Taiye's presence pressed harder. Yet he is already bound, the voice echoed. This is merely acknowledgement. The agreement was sealed before I could speak again. The backlash reversed direction. My sister slept peacefully for the first time in days. I collapsed. When I awoke, the world was different, sharper, louder, closer. Every spirit within several kilometers announced itself without meaning to. Grief, fear, greed, regret. They brushed against my senses constantly, unfiltered. I tasted iron at the back of my throat. Hu Xiaoba knelt beside me, eyes lowered. You now carry what she was meant to lose slowly, she said. You will age differently, feel differently, and if you fall, there will be no one left to intervene. I asked about my sister. She will live, Hu Xiaoba said, as human as she can be. That night, I understood the final truth. Power is never shared evenly. Someone always pays more, so another can pay less. And from that moment on, every step I took would echo twice, once for myself and once for the debt now carved into my fate. We left the city before anyone noticed something was wrong with me. Not because we were being hunted, but because staying would have made the truth impossible to hide. The debt I carried did not manifest as pain or illness. It manifested as difference. I no longer blended in. Crowded places unsettled me, not from anxiety, but from excess. Too many heartbeats, too many emotional residues clinging to the air. Each passerby left an imprint, fear, desire, resentment, brushing against my senses like wet cloth. At first I tried to ignore it. That was a mistake. Ignoring spiritual overload is like holding your breath underwater and pretending the lungs are fine. The body remembers even if the mind refuses. 3 nights into our journey, my reflection changed. Not drastically, not enough for others to notice, but I did. My pupils caught light differently, reflecting faint gold even in darkness. My skin felt cooler to the touch, especially at dawn. Hunger faded. Sleep became optional. When I closed my eyes, I could still see dim outlines of movement beneath the world's surface. Hu Xiaoba confirmed what I feared. The debt is restructuring you, she said quietly. Your body is adapting so it can endure what your soul now carries. Am I still human? I asked. She did not answer immediately. That question, she finally said, only matters if you intend to remain one. We moved from town to town, never staying long. Word traveled strangely. People with unresolved disturbances seemed to find us without effort. A shop owner plagued by recurring accidents. A factory worker followed by something that mimicked his voice. A woman whose shadow lagged behind her steps. I handled them efficiently, clinically, no hesitation, no indulgence. Hu Xiaoba watched with growing concern. You are no longer negotiating, she said one night. You are enforcing. She was right. Where I once guided, I now commanded. Spirits responded immediately, some in submission, others in terror. I felt their resistance like static against my skin, their compliance like gravity settling. Each case left a mark, not exhaustion, distance. the human world began to feel thin. The first sign others noticed was the cold. Rooms cooled when I entered. Breath fogged slightly around me, even in mild weather. Metal surfaces retained my touch longer than they should have. The second sign was silence. Animals avoided me instinctively. Dogs whimpered and refused to approach. Cats stared, unblinking, calculating before turning away. Birds went quiet when I lingered too long. The third sign was memory. People forgot details about me moments after speaking. Faces blurred in recollection. Descriptions became vague. "He helped," they would say. "He fixed it." But what did he look like? No one could answer. Hu Xiaoba finally spoke the words I had been circling. "You are becoming an anchor," I asked her to explain. "Not a practitioner," she said. "Not fully. An anchor stabilizes zones of imbalance simply by existing. Your presence suppresses weaker disturbances. Stronger ones are drawn to you." "So I'll never stop working," I said. She nodded. "And you'll never truly arrive anywhere." That night, the transformation accelerated. Pain bloomed behind my ribs, not sharp, but expanding, as if something were rearranging itself internally. I doubled over, gasping, vision blurring. Hu Xiaoba appeared instantly, hands glowing faintly as she pressed them to my chest. "This is not possession," she said urgently. "Do not resist." I didn't. The pain subsided, leaving clarity in its wake. I could feel my heartbeat, not just my own, but others, echoing faintly when emotions spiked nearby. I could sense thresholds, doorways where the boundary thinned, places where death had lingered too long. And deeper still, I felt the debt, no longer abstract. It sat within me like a second spine, supporting power while demanding balance. And when I stood, I was steady. Too steady. I thought of my sister often. She wrote rarely now. Her letters were warm, ordinary. She spoke of work, weather, small joys. No mention of spirits, no mention of shadows. She was reclaiming humanity, at my expense. Hu Xiaoba watched me read the letters one evening, her expression unreadable. "You saved her," she said. "I displaced the cost," I corrected. She did not argue. Before dawn, she finally told me what I had not asked. "The Hu clan will not intervene again," she said. "You are beyond protection protocols, beyond reclamation." "What am I then?" I asked. She met my eyes fully for the first time in days. "You are something walking between," she said. "Not crossing, not returning." As the sun rose, I packed our few belongings. No destination, no intention to settle, only motion. Because I had learned the final rule of carrying debt. If you stand still too long, the world will start using you. And I was not yet ready to become a place others came to die. There was a moment, quiet, unremarkable, when I realized I could not return. It did not come with a dramatic rejection or an explicit banishment. It came in a train station, standing among ordinary people, waiting for departure. I blended in perfectly. No one stared, no one recoiled, and yet no one noticed me either. Announcements echoed overhead, conversations overlapped. A child brushed past my arm and shivered, instinctively pulling away. His mother apologized to the empty space where I stood. I was present, but no longer registered. That was when I understood. I could still walk among humans, but I could not rejoin them. The debt had eroded something essential, my claim to shared reality. I existed adjacent to their lives like a shadow, cast by a light source that no longer remembered its origin. Hu Xiaoba confirmed it later. "You've crossed the soft boundary," she said. not exile, not ascension, detachment. I asked if it was reversible. She shook her head. Not without collapse. The structure holding you together depends on distance now. That night, a message reached me without words. A pull. Faint, insistent, unmistakable. Another anchor was nearby. I found him in a derelict apartment block, slated for demolition. The building hummed with imbalance, layers of abandoned intention stacked atop one another, the kind of place where people left parts of themselves behind without realizing it. He sat in the stairwell, unmoving. At first glance, he looked human, late 30s, unshaven. Eyes sunken from exhaustion rather than madness, but the air around him folded inward, like gravity misbehaving. You feel it too, he said without looking up. That pressure, that pull. I sat across from him. Yes, I replied. How long have you been carrying it? He laughed quietly, long enough to forget who I was before. He introduced himself as Lin Q, once a practitioner, once protected, once convinced he could balance debt and mercy simultaneously. His story unfolded without embellishment. He had taken on too much, shielded too many, deferred payment one intervention at a time, until the debt stopped negotiating. They don't kill you, he said calmly. They hollow you out, leave the structure intact so the function continues. I asked why he hadn't left, why he stayed in a place like this. Because anchors attract, he answered, and eventually they meet. He lifted his sleeve. His arm was translucent in places, veins faintly glowing, as if lit from within by borrowed light. Parts of him were already slipping, no longer fully bound to form. I'm failing, he said simply. And when I do, whatever I've been, holding back will release. I understood immediately. This was not a request for help. It was a warning. Hu Xiaoba appeared silently beside me, her face grave. If he collapses here, she said, this district will become uninhabitable. I asked if he could be stabilized. She did not answer. Lin Qiu looked at me then, eyes suddenly sharp. You're newer, he said, still intact. That means you still have leverage. What are you asking? I asked. Witness, he replied, and containment. The implications settled heavily between us. There are failures no one records, endings that do not deserve ceremony, only management. I prepared the formation, not to save him, to prevent what came after. As the lines took shape, Lin Qiu exhaled, tension easing from his shoulders for the first time since I'd arrived. Don't make my mistake, he said quietly. Don't believe endurance equals righteousness. The collapse was silent. No explosion, no scream, just release. The pressure dissipated outward, absorbed, neutralized. When it was over, there was nothing left but dust and a faint impression on the concrete where a man had once existed. I dismantled the formation slowly, carefully. Hu Xiaoba watched me with something like sorrow. You've crossed another line, she said. Yes, I replied. But I didn't hesitate, she nodded. That's what worries me. As dawn broke, the city resumed its rhythm, unaware it had narrowly avoided disaster. I walked away without looking back, because I had seen my future not as prophecy but as precedent. And I understood then the final cruelty of this path. You don't fall all at once. You are replaced, piece by piece, by something functional enough that no one notices when you're gone. Not everyone sees, and not everyone stays until the end. If you are someone who is still listening, subscribe to the channel and follow along. Because the stories that come next may not find you again.